Dr. Leo Marsh knelt over the massive, unconscious form of the alien warrior, his hands slick with a greenish-blue goo that was probably blood. "Stay with me, big girl," he muttered, fumbling through his worn medical kit. "I've seen worse hangovers than this." Thravara, even in her prone state, was a sight. 10 feet of rippling muscle, deep purple skin, and tribal armor that seemed more for intimidation than protection. Her chest rose and fell in heavy, labored breaths. Leo pulled out his emergency thermos, unscrewing the cap and letting the scent of lukewarm chicken soup waft through the smoky air. "This'll fix you right up," he whispered, dribbling the broth between her lips. She sputtered, eyes fluttering open. Her irises glowed amber, focusing on him with a mix of confusion and awe. "Am I in the afterlands?" she rasped. "Nope. Still in the mud, sweetheart." He pressed a gauze pad to the gnarly gash on her shoulder. "You've just been saved by Dr. Leo Marsh, healer extraordinaire." "You're welcome." Thravara's massive hand shot up, gripping his wrist with surprising gentleness. You tend my wounds." "This is forbidden." Leo blinked. "Forbidden? You'd rather bleed out?" Her expression shifted to something almost bashful, a bizarre look on a face built like a tank. "It is the sacred rite of bonding. To heal a warrior in battle, you have chosen me." "Chosen you? For what?" She sat up, and Leo's medical pad tumbled off her skin, landing in the mud with a wet plop. Around them, other Gorakan warriors began to stir, their battle over. Some cheered, others dropped their weapons, and a few stared at Leo as if he just sprouted a second head. "I am Thravara, daughter of the Blood Moon clan," she announced, her voice gaining strength. "And I accept your proposal, my husband." Wait, what now?" Leo's voice cracked. "Husband? No. I'm just a doctor." The clan leader approached, a creature even taller than Thravara, adorned with bones and feathers. His tusks jutted from a wide grin. "Healer, you have honored our traditions. You have mended our champion, and now you shall join our tribe. I was just trying to keep her from bleeding out." The leader chuckled, a sound like boulders grinding together. "Such modesty. Truly, the gods smile upon this union. Prepare the bonding ceremony." Leo's protests were lost in the uproar. Thravara stood, towering over him, her wounds knitting together under his hasty bandaging. She looked at him with a mix of affection and hunger. "You are smaller than I expected, but size is not everything," she said, her lips curling into what he hoped was a smile. "Listen, I think there's been a misunderstanding." He tried to edge away, but the warriors closed ranks, slapping his back and offering him alien fruits that smelled like burned rubber. "I'm not looking to settle down. Especially not here. Or, with someone who could bench press my entire medical tent." Thravara tilted her head. "You fear me?" "A little." "You're a lot." His hands waved vaguely at her, gesturing to the impressive expanse of muscle, the claws, the armor with spikes that seemed less decorative and more functional. "And I mean that in the nicest way. It is good. A husband should respect his wife's strength." She took his hand. His entire hand disappeared in her palm. "Come, we must prepare." "Prepare for what?" he squeaked. "For the bonding ritual." She tugged him along, and his feet barely touched the ground. "You have healed my wounds. Tonight I shall heal yours." "That's ominous." They reached the center of the camp, where a roaring bonfire crackled. The clan gathered, chanting in their guttural language. Leo found himself draped in a ceremonial garb, if it could be called that. The ensemble consisted of a loincloth, a leather harness, and a necklace of polished bones that rattled with every step. "Is this really necessary?" he whispered to the nearest warrior, who handed him a gourd filled with a viscous, bubbling drink. "Tradition demands it," the warrior replied, eyeing him with an unsettling mix of admiration and curiosity. "You are the first human to bond with a champion. Your stamina must be legendary." No. My stamina is very normal. Below average, even. I skip leg day a lot." Thravara stood by the fire, her silhouette a mix of shadow and flame. She beckoned to him, and the crowd hushed. Leo gulped down a mouthful of the drink. It tasted like Jim's socks and hot sauce. "Leo, my mate," she intoned. "You have healed my wounds. You have claimed my spirit. I am yours." The crowd erupted in cheers. Leo's mind raced to a dozen escape plans, each more ridiculous than the last. Maybe if he pretended to faint? Or could he challenge their traditions with bureaucracy? "Tonight you shall enter the tent of union," the clan leader declared. "And by morning, our tribe shall be bound by blood and other fluids." "Oh God!" Thravara took his hand again, leading him toward a large tent adorned with furs and alien flowers. The crowd parted, warriors pounding their chests in rhythmic approval. Leo's knees wobbled. Inside the tent, the mood shifted. Soft lights, glowing crystals, cast gentle shadows. Thravara sat cross-legged on a massive fur-covered bed, her expression softening. "Leo, do not fear," she said. "I know human customs may differ. I shall not harm you." "That's good to know." He took a cautious step forward, then another. "So, what exactly does the bonding ritual involve?" She smiled, a genuine warmth breaking through her warrior mask. "We share stories. We exchange truths. And if you wish, we may rest." Leo's shoulders slumped in relief. "Rest sounds amazing." She patted the space beside her, and he climbed onto the bed, feeling like a small dog climbing onto a bear's rug. They sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the celebration outside muffled by the heavy tent walls. "I once slew a draken beast with nothing but a shard of bone," she began. "Tell me of your greatest victory." Leo thought for a moment. "I convinced my college roommate to do my share of the dishes for an entire semester. He thought I was allergic to dish soap." She laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the bed. "You are strange, Leo Marsh. But I think I shall like being your wife." And as the alien camp settled into its evening rhythm, Leo allowed himself to relax, just a little, wondering how he'd gone from battlefield medic to alien husband in a single afternoon. Leo awoke to the rhythmic rumble of alien chanting, his body nestled into a mound of furs that smelled like a mix of leather and wet rocks. His head throbbed, partly from the alien brew and partly from the realization that yesterday hadn't been a bad dream. He was still married to a 10-foot-tall alien warrior princess. "Ah, my husband rises!" Thravara's voice boomed from the tent's entrance, her silhouette cutting an imposing figure against the early morning light. She ducked under the low doorway, carrying what looked like a wriggling sack. "I have brought you breakfast." Leo squinted, his stomach turning as she opened the sack, revealing a pile of live, squirming creatures that resembled lizards with too many legs. One attempted a leap for freedom, and Thravara caught it midair, biting it in half with a crunch that echoed in the small space. Thanks. I'm more of a cereal guy," Leo mumbled, pulling the fur blanket up to his chin. "Any, alien equivalent of toast?" She cocked her head, a chunk of lizard tail still hanging from her lips. "Is toast a type of prey? I shall hunt it for you." No. Toast is, never mind." He sat up, rubbing his face. "So, about this whole husband thing, there's gotta be a way to unbond? Like an annulment? Do you have space lawyers?" Her brow furrowed, a look that Leo had quickly learned to associate with impending confusion. "Unbond? You wish to dissolve our union?" Her voice dropped, a mixture of hurt and something dangerously close to offense. "No. I mean, yes. Not because of you. You're great. Very tall. And strong. And probably a catch around here." He fumbled with his words. "It's just that I'm human. Our customs are different." She sat cross-legged before him, the ground shaking slightly under her weight. "I understand. Humans require rituals, yes? Courting traditions? I shall honor them." She placed her massive hand over his. "Tell me, what must I do to win your heart?" Leo's mind spun through 1,000 scenarios, most of which involved running very fast in the opposite direction. But Thravara's wide amber eyes held a sincerity that made his guilt bloom. Well, humans usually start with dates? Dates. Yes. Like when warriors go on hunts together? She perked up, her tusks gleaming in the dim light. I shall take you on the hunt of a lifetime. You will spear your first car beast, and I will chant your name under the moons. Or, he interjected quickly, we could do something low-key. Like share a meal. Talk. Maybe not kill anything? Her face fell slightly, and he rushed to fill the silence. But you know, I'd love to learn more about your culture. We could do a storytelling thing? You share a story, I share a story? Her expression brightened. Yes. I shall tell you of the time I wrestled an ice serpent in the northern glaciers. She leaned in, her enthusiasm palpable. Its breath turned the air to shards of frost, but I gripped its throat and... Great! Perfect! Leo held up his hands. Maybe save that story for bedtime. What about something a little more everyday? She considered this, then nodded. There was the day I caught 3 fish with my bare hands. They were slippery, but I prevailed. My tribe feasted that night. Now we're talking, he said, relaxing slightly. See, humans like those kinds of stories. Relatable. Real. She grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. And what of you, husband? What are your tales of valor? Leo's mind blanked. Well, I once convinced my boss I was working late by sending emails with a delayed delivery. Made it look like I was pulling an all-nighter when I was really watching TV. Her head tilted again, a gesture he was beginning to recognize as intense focus. This is trickery? Not trickery. More like strategy. He leaned in, warming to his own story. Humans aren't always strong with our bodies, but we're great at thinking our way around problems. Like, why wrestle a beast when you can build a trap? Her eyes widened. You are a shaman. A mind warrior. No, I'm just human. He sighed. Look, Thravara, I really appreciate all of this. You've been kind, and way more patient than I deserve. But I'm not sure I'm cut out for this whole husband of a warrior princess gig. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face with surprising gentleness. You underestimate yourself. The clan speaks of you. They say the way you healed me was tender. Her lips moved over the word, as if tasting it. They say your small hands work great miracles. Leo's face went red. Thank you. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a sultry rumble. Perhaps, in time, you will show me more of these tender miracles. His brain short-circuited. We should probably go for that date. Right? You mentioned fishing? She chuckled, the sound a purr that vibrated through his bones. Yes. Come, my husband. I shall teach you to fish. And perhaps you shall teach me more of your human ways. As she stood, the tent seemed to shrink around her. Leo clambered to his feet, every step a mix of dread and curiosity. He couldn't tell if he was walking toward an adventure or into the strangest honeymoon in galactic history. Either way, he was in it now. Leo stood at the edge of a rocky outcrop, his feet unsteady on the jagged alien terrain. Below, the camp buzzed with anticipation as the Gorakan warriors prepared for the trials of husbandry. He'd hoped husbandry meant something safe, like farming or maybe petting small, fuzzy creatures. Instead, it turned out to be a series of challenges designed to prove his worth as Thravara's mate. This is not what I signed up for, he muttered, clutching a spear that was almost as tall as he was. The wood felt rough and foreign in his grip, and the blade gleamed ominously. Can't we skip to the sharing stories by the fire part again? Thravara stood beside him, her armor polished and her expression filled with pride. You honor me by participating, husband. The trials will show the clan your strength, your courage, and your stamina. Her lips curled into a mischievous smile. Leo's stomach churned. Is stamina, like, an important part of this? Very, she said with a wink that could mean anything from flirtation to a promise of battle. The clan leader, draped in bone and feather, raised his staff to the sky. Let the trials begin. First, the wrestling of the night beast. A massive cage was wheeled into the arena. Inside, a creature with sleek black fur and glowing red eyes snarled, its claws scraping the metal bars. Leo's knees nearly buckled. Are you sure this is safe? He whispered. Thravara slapped his back, nearly knocking him over. Of course not. But fear not, I shall not let it devour you completely. That's reassuring. The cage opened, and the night beast leapt forward. The crowd roared as Leo stumbled backward, his spear slipping from his grasp. The beast growled, its fangs dripping with something that sizzled when it hit the ground. Acid saliva, of course. Leo's survival instincts kicked in, and by instincts, he meant blind panic. He scrambled away, tripping over his own feet. The beast lunged, and Leo flung out his hands, more to cover his face than to defend himself. His thermos, still strapped to his belt, burst open, and a stream of cold chicken soup splashed the creature's face. The beast yelped, rearing back. Its red eyes watered, and it began to paw at its snout, the acidic drool mixing with broth. The crowd fell silent as the creature whimpered, rolling onto its back, its limbs twitching. Leo sat up, still clutching the empty thermos. Did I win? The clan leader stared, his mouth agape. You have tamed the beast with your mystic elixir. A true shaman. The warriors erupted into cheers, chanting his name. Leo clambered to his feet, brushing dirt from his loincloth. Yeah. All part of the plan. Thravara beamed at him. You are full of surprises, husband. The next trial was a test of endurance. Leo found himself on a rickety raft, drifting down a river that churned with glowing, bioluminescent fish. The water was frigid, mist rising from its surface. The goal, apparently, was to swim to shore while avoiding the fish, which the warriors claimed had a playful bite. Leo suspected playful was an understatement. The raft hit a rock, and he tumbled into the water. Cold needles stabbed at his skin as he flailed. The fish swarmed, their glowing bodies darting around him. He yelped as tiny teeth nibbled at his ankles. Think, Leo, think, he muttered, his teeth chattering. His hands found a broken piece of the raft, and he swung it like a paddle, creating a small barrier between himself and the fish. Slowly, awkwardly, he began to paddle toward the shore. When he finally crawled onto the riverbank, his skin was pruned, and his loincloth clung uncomfortably to his thighs. The crowd awaited him, their expressions mixed with awe and amusement. He rides the river's wrath and emerges unscathed, the clan leader declared. Leo sat on the muddy ground, sucking in air. Yep. Totally planned that too. The final trial involved strength, or at least that's what Leo thought when they handed him a massive boulder and told him to lift it. His arms shook as he braced himself, but no amount of human willpower was going to make his noodle arms lift a rock the size of a small car. Instead, he crouched beside it, examining the ground. The rock rested on loose soil, and an idea sparked. Using his hands, he dug a small trench beneath one side of the boulder. When it was deep enough, he grabbed a sturdy stick and used it as a lever, pushing down with all his weight. The boulder shifted, then rolled forward, creating the illusion that he'd moved it by sheer strength. The crowd gasped, and Thravara's eyes shone with admiration. Behold! The strength of a human! The clan leader cried. Leo leaned on the stick, his breath coming in short, painful bursts. Yeah. Strong as an ox. Or at least a very determined squirrel. Thravara rushed to his side, scooping him up in an embrace that nearly crushed his ribs. You have proven yourself, my husband. The clan accepts you as one of us. That's great, he wheezed. Can I lie down now? She carried him back to their tent, the crowd parting before them. Leo's head lolled against her shoulder, his mind a haze of exhaustion and disbelief. Somehow, through sheer accident and occasional cowardice, he'd completed the trials. As Thravara laid him gently on the furs, he managed a weak smile. I really thought I was gonna die back there. She sat beside him, her massive hand brushing his hair back. You are braver than you know. You face danger with cleverness, not brute force. It is refreshing. Thanks. I guess I'm not the traditional hero type. He closed his eyes, the tense warmth enveloping him. More like the accidental hero type. She leaned down, her breath warm against his ear. Accidental or not, you are mine. Rest now. Tomorrow, we shall celebrate. As sleep claimed him, Leo's last thought was that somehow, against all odds, he was starting to feel a little at home. Among the warriors of Gorakan. And maybe, just maybe, being the husband of a 10-foot-tall alien warrior wasn't the worst gig in the galaxy. Leo barely had time to enjoy the warmth of the fire and the rare moment of stillness before the clan leader announced the final trial. His stomach, which had just settled after the river ordeal, twisted into knots again as the warriors formed a circle around him and Travara. Drums pounded, their rhythm both exhilarating and ominous. The final test! The clan leader bellowed, raising his staff to the sky. A duel of honor! Our champion's husband must prove his worth against a challenger from the rival clan. Leo's mouth went dry. Duel? As in fight? Travara's hand found his, her grip reassuring yet firm enough to remind him she could snap him like a twig. Do not fear, husband. Show them the strength of your cunning. You are a mind warrior. Yeah, but mind warriors usually stay behind desks. Or at least have a plan that isn't try not to die. The crowd parted, and the challenger stepped forward. He was nearly as tall as Travara, with 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. His skin was a mottled green, and his tusks were decorated with metal rings that clinked ominously as he snarled. Great, Leo muttered. I'm fighting a 4-armed Shrek with a bad attitude. The challenger thumped his chest, the sound like a drumbeat. I am Grok of the Bone Splinter clan. I shall take your place and claim Travara as my mate. Over my dead body. Leo shot back, then realized what he'd said. No, wait. I mean, let's not make this literal. The clan leader gestured for the duel to begin. Grok wasted no time, charging forward with all 4 weapons swinging. Leo's instincts screamed at him to run, and he did, circling the arena, narrowly avoiding the arc of Grok's blades. Face me, coward! Grok roared, his voice guttural and thick with contempt. Leo's brain scrambled for an idea, any idea. His eyes darted around the makeshift arena, noting the rocks, the dirt, the wooden weapons piled nearby. His mind seized on a ridiculous plan, the kind that only desperation could inspire. He snatched up a small, round shield and a staff, more like a walking stick than a weapon. Grok advanced, and Leo thrust the staff forward, aiming not for Grok but for the ground. He drove it into the soft earth, kicking up a cloud of dust. Grok halted, his extra set of eyes blinking as the dust cloud enveloped him. Leo dashed around to his blind side, using the shield to bash the back of Grok's knees. The larger alien stumbled, his weapons clattering to the ground. The crowd gasped, and Leo's confidence surged. Yeah! You like that, you overgrown gecko? Grok twisted, one of his arms lashing out and catching Leo in the ribs. Pain exploded through his side, and he hit the dirt, the world tilting. His vision blurred, Grok's silhouette looming over him, the blades gleaming. You are weak, Grok sneered. Unworthy of her. Leo's fingers found his thermos, now dented but still warm. He pulled it free and, with the last of his strength, flung it upward. The metal canister struck Grok's forehead with a dull thud, and a thin stream of soup splattered across his face. Grok stumbled back, the hot broth dripping into his eyes. What is this? Chicken soup, you jerk. Leo pushed to his feet, swaying. Good for the soul. Bad for bullies. The crowd murmured, and the clan leader stepped forward. The challenger is blinded. The mind warrior has used his secret weapon. Travara cheered, her voice rising above the others. My husband is victorious. Grok wiped his face, his rage turning his skin a darker shade of green. He roared, lunging forward with one of his fallen blades. Leo didn't think, he reacted. He ducked low, the blade whistling over his head, and swung the shield up. It connected with Grok's jaw, a crunch echoing through the clearing. The larger alien crumpled, his weapons falling from limp hands. Silence gripped the camp. Leo stood over Grok, his chest heaving, his limbs trembling. "Stay down," he panted. "Or next time, I bring the chicken noodle." The clan erupted into applause. Warriors thumped their chests, and some began a chant that Leo hoped wasn't an invitation to another trial. Thravara rushed to his side, lifting him effortlessly into the air. "You are incredible!" She spun him around, his legs dangling. "A true warrior of mind and body! I think I broke a rib," he wheezed, but his lips curled into a tired smile. "But hey, as long as I impress the in-laws." The clan leader approached, his expression solemn. "Leo Marsh, you have passed all trials. You are not only a husband to our champion but now a member of our tribe. You shall be known as the tender-handed, he who brings miracles." Leo blinked. "Tender-handed? That's surprisingly accurate." The celebration began, fires stoked and food shared. Leo found himself surrounded by warriors eager to hear his tales, embellished, of course. He might have claimed the chicken soup was a mystical brew of his people, one that could blind enemies and soothe the sick. Thravara sat by his side, her arm around his shoulders, her laughter shaking the ground. As the night wore on, Leo felt a strange contentment settle over him. He'd come to Gorakon as a doctor, an outsider. Now he sat as part of something bigger, surrounded by aliens who saw him not as weak or strange but as clever and worthy. Thravara leaned in, her voice soft and teasing. "You continue to surprise me, husband. Tonight I shall show you the true depths of Gorakon hospitality." His face flushed. What exactly does that mean?" She grinned, her tusks gleaming. "It means rest, warmth, and perhaps more stories by the fire. If you have the stamina." He exhaled, a mix of relief and intrigue. "I think I can manage that." As they retreated to their tent, the sounds of celebration fading behind them, Leo couldn't help but marvel at how wildly his life had veered off course. What had started as a desperate attempt to avoid student loans had turned into a bizarre, wonderful adventure. And as Thravara nestled beside him, her massive form surprisingly gentle, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he had found his place. Not as a warrior or a hero, but as a human who had accidentally become a legend.